Day after day, we are surrounded by the presence of criminals. We are spectators to the deepest darkness in human actions and the bizarre reality that someone's suffering can be a form of pleasure. As dedicated investigators of the criminal world, we're on a mission to uncover the most shocking crimes and get inside the minds of those who commit them. I am Luke, and today I bring you another unreal true crime. The sad case of Melany Steisy Amaya. Melany Steisy Amaya was born on February 22, 2002, in the municipality of San Rafael, in the department of Antioquia, Colombia. Her parents, William Amaya and Maria Leon, were overjoyed at her birth despite being very young. They had been planning to have a daughter, and their wish was finally fulfilled. Later, the family grew with the arrival of another girl, Natalie. The two sisters got along very well and played together all the time. From her childhood, Melany showed a cheerful and fun personality. Her smile was her main feature, and she was also very flirtatious, often asking her mother for makeup to paint her dolls. Despite not having many resources, her parents always managed to give her everything she needed. She was one of the best students in school, with excellent grades. Over the years, Melany developed a very strong character. She was proud and always wanted to be right about everything. However, this did not prevent her from having an excellent relationship with her mother. Whenever they fought, they would reconcile, share everything, and support each other. When Melany entered adolescence, her parents separated on good terms. Shortly after, Maria met Ruben Morales, and they became a couple. Later, they decided to move in together. Both Melany and her sister went with them, settling in the Manrique neighborhood in Medellin. Their relationship with their stepfather was excellent. They considered him their second father. Ruben respected their bond with William, always reminding them that he was there to help raise them, but did not want them to stop seeing their biological father. By the time she turned 16, Melany was a very pretty young woman who liked to dress up and go out partying. She had many friends who held her in high esteem. It was at this time that she discovered her passion: electronic music. She decided she wanted to be a DJ, and her family supported her in everything, beginning to save money to buy her a console. They were sure that whatever she did would be excellent, as she was extremely intelligent. However, Melany never got to fulfill her dreams. On Thursday, June 28, 2018, Melany was getting ready to go to the birthday party of Isaac, her best friend. Although they had celebrated the week before, they were ready for another party. The party was to be held at a nightclub located on Carrera 45, an area known for its nightlife. When she finished getting ready, she told her mother that she was leaving. Her mother asked her to take care and not to return too late. They hugged, and Melany got into her Uber heading to the club, but she never arrived. Isaac arrived at the nightclub and noticed his friend's absence. The techno music was very loud, and the place was crowded. He began to look for her everywhere. When he couldn't find her, he started sending her messages, but Melany didn't respond. Isaac thought she might be with Maria Londoño, her neighbor and closest friend, and decided to wait until the next day and celebrated his birthday as usual. Maria woke up at 7 in the morning and noticed that her daughter had not returned. Her room was just as she had left it the night before while getting ready. Worried, Maria began to call her phone, but it was out of service. She thought it might be out of battery and that Melany might be at a friend's house, but it seemed strange that she had not tried to communicate with her. Maria decided to call Isaac, who told her that Melany had never arrived at the nightclub and might be with a friend. Maria contacted all of her daughter's acquaintances, but there were no signs of her, and no one knew her whereabouts. Finally, she spoke to some friends who said that Melany had arrived at the club's door, but did not enter, thinking she might have gone to another party. Completely desperate, Maria called her ex-husband and gave him the terrible news. He tried to calm her, saying it was still early, and that Melany might be sleeping at someone's house. But the afternoon came, and Melany did not appear. Her parents tried to report her disappearance at the police station, but since it was a holiday, they were not taken seriously and were told to wait longer. Trying to stay composed, her parents thought she might have gone to a farm, probably celebrating the long weekend, likely with no cell phone signal, and that's why she hadn't communicated with them. But deep down, they knew that wasn't true. They sensed that something bad was happening. Maria, Ruben, and William began their own search, covering all the places where they thought Melany could be, from the houses of her acquaintances to parks and the streets of the nightclubs she frequented. After an initial search, they decided to post flyers all over the city with a detailed description of the young girl, including a photograph that Melany had taken the night she disappeared. She was seen wearing a short blouse, light blue jeans, and white sneakers. Her physical characteristics were described as slender, short in height, with black hair, brown eyes, and several tattoos: a rose on her chest, a moon on her forearm, and wings on her back. Her most distinctive tattoos were a fish on her right leg, covering a motorcycle burn, and one under her clavicle that said, "Crazy Life." She also had a belly button piercing and a peritonitis scar on her abdomen, making her easily recognizable. While distributing the flyers to pedestrians and police officers on the street, they made it clear they were utterly desperate and that the official search should start as soon as possible. The news spread quickly, and social media was flooded with images of Melany. The weekend passed terribly. Maria couldn't sleep, constantly thinking about her daughter. Finally, early on Monday, Maria went to the police station to report her daughter missing. The search was categorized as urgent due to Melany being a minor. Officers checked hospitals and morgues to see if anyone named Melany or matching her physical characteristics had been admitted, but they found no trace of her. Melany's parents clung to the hope of finding her alive, but the days became longer and her absence more worrying. Then, the first lead emerged. A witness approached the police station to give a statement, saying they had seen Melany on the night of June 28 near the El Pomar soccer field. They noted that the young woman was dirty and beaten, as if she had fallen, and was accompanied by a young man wearing loose clothes, a cap, and large sports shoes. While this testimony contributed to the search, the situation remained complicated. The description of the boy with Melany was very general, as most of her friends dressed that way. However, Maria thought of one person, Miguel Naranjo, her daughter's ex-boyfriend. The 18-year-old had ended his relationship with Melany 3 months earlier on bad terms. Maria asked her younger daughter to contact him. Miguel claimed to know nothing about Melany's whereabouts, emphasizing that he hadn't seen her for weeks. He then expressed great concern, saying he would be devastated if something happened to her, as he still cared for her deeply. However, days later, more testimonies contradicted Miguel's statements, with all witnesses saying they saw them together at a party that night, and that he was very drunk. Following these declarations, the prosecutor's office began to consider Miguel the main suspect in Melany's disappearance. They obtained a warrant to search his house, but they found no trace of Melany, leaving them back where they started, without the slightest idea of the girl's whereabouts. On July 5 of the same year, Maria woke up in anguish, unable to believe that her daughter was still missing. She prayed to God to bring her back, alive or dead, as she couldn't stand the uncertainty anymore. Her prayers were answered, but not in a good way. That same day, Maria received a call from an unknown number. On the other end of the line, a voice told her to stop searching for her daughter because she was already in another world and buried in a place called El Calvario. Without allowing for more questions, the caller asked Maria not to reveal their identity to the police, as they had not spoken earlier due to fear. After the call ended, Maria quickly headed to the police station. Along with her husband and 2 officers, they set out towards the mountain, and she also notified everyone she knew to help with the search. They arrived at El Granizal neighborhood of Medellin, where the mountain was located. The territory was large, with many entrances and full of bushes. To reach the hill, they had to climb many steep stairs and pass through squatter houses, which was extremely dangerous. They decided to split into several groups to cover the area more quickly. Ruben went towards an area full of bushes, behind one of the houses. The ground was full of large footprints, as if someone had been dragged. He followed the trail and noticed a sight with many flies buzzing around and a penetrating odor. He grabbed a stick and began moving the rocks on the ground. When he turned over one of them, he saw something terrible, a human head. He immediately called the police officers who were searching nearby. At first, they thought it could be an animal, as animals were often dumped in that area. They continued removing stones and spotted blood. Finally, they could clearly see the face, which was completely disfigured, but it was evident that it belonged to a human body. Maria couldn't stop crying, not wanting it to be her daughter. Natalie thought it might be another girl who had also been missing for some time. The whole family was in denial. The officers notified the forensic medicine services. When they were able to unearth the body, all doubts were cleared. Despite the mutilation, they could discern the tattoo on the girl's chest. The body was completely unclothed, with the mouth open and filled with dirt, all teeth broken, and one of the eyes dislodged. There was also something very strange. The person who buried her had thrown calcium oxide over her. The body was exhumed by the criminalistics and transferred to the Institute of Legal Medicine and Forensic Sciences. After a few hours, experts confirmed that it was none other than Melany. Although her body showed signs of all types of violence, the cause of death was mechanical asphyxia. Due to the advanced state of decomposition, it could not be determined if the young woman had been sexually abused, but they could confirm that she had been severely mistreated. Her family was inconsolable. There was no longer any hope of finding her alive, but they could still find the terrible person who had committed the sinister crime. The media published the news of the discovery, and all viewers' eyes turned to Ruben, believing that the fact he had found the body while alone made him a possible suspect. However, the community had other opinions. They knew Melany had no enemies, but had an idea of who might want to harm her. Everyone was aware that her relationship with Miguel had not ended well, and that he was a rather violent young man. Meanwhile, Miguel continued sending messages to Melany's relatives, saying he was very distressed by the young woman's loss and had done everything possible to find her. But no one believed him anymore, and an angry mob of neighbors showed up at his home to lynch him. The police took advantage of this event to take him to the police station, claiming they were protecting him, but the real objective was to interrogate him. His statement was quick. He said he was innocent and seemed very sure of his words. As there was no evidence against him, they had to let him go. Almost simultaneously, Ruben was cleared of any involvement in the case. There was no evidence suggesting he had anything to do with his stepdaughter's murder. Even with Miguel as the main suspect, investigators began to delve into the relationship he had with Melany. According to sources close to the young woman, the couple met in 2016 when she was 14 and he was 17. Melany organized a party with her best friends and hired a DJ, who was Miguel. She was enchanted by him, and they began dating that same week. later becoming official. They went everywhere together, even on outings with friends. Everyone liked Miguel. They noticed he was loving with Melany and cared for her deeply. Over the months, the young man started spending more and more time at her house, becoming an integral part of the family. Maria knew that Miguel had problems with his mother. He had told her that she often beat him and sometimes left him without food. Melany's family cared for him so much that they decided to take him into their home as if he were another son. In the first months of living together, everything was rosy, and they were closer than ever. However, over time, the relationship between the two teenagers began to crumble. They argued constantly, and Miguel was extremely bothered by Melany's liking for dressing up flirtatiously. She was so affected that she decided to leave school and started doing something she had never done before: consuming substances. Maria took a while to realize this and confronted her daughter. Melany told her she had only done it a few times, always in Miguel's company. This is how Miguel lost all the trust and respect of the family, and from then on, the situation only worsened. The fights became violent and physical. Miguel constantly hit Melany, leaving marks on her neck and arms. One day, he beat her so severely that he stained the entire room with blood. Maria tried to help her daughter, but Melany asked her not to interfere in their relationship and pleaded to continue living together. Their friends were also worried. They noticed how her spirit was fading. They saw her cry every day and advised her to leave him. After 2 years of ups and downs, on May 23, 2018, the young couple had their last violent fight. Melany decided to definitively leave Miguel and threw him out of her house, but he did not accept this and began to stalk and follow her everywhere. Ruben decided to go to the prosecutor's office to report that his stepdaughter was in danger and request a restraining order. But sadly, this measure was never carried out. In the following months, Miguel continued to seek Melany, swearing that if she gave him another chance, he would do things differently, but she never agreed. And so, without any help from the police, the young woman tried to continue with her life as normally as possible until the terrible incident on June 28. After gathering all possible testimonies about the young couple's relationship, the officers investigated Miguel's criminal history. They discovered that despite his young age, he already had reports of domestic abuse. Records indicated he had beaten his mother and siblings. They also found the report Ruben had filed months earlier and the testimony of a friend of Melany's. This young man declared that Miguel had said if he found out she was with someone else, he would kill her, but that wasn't the most shocking part. The person who had called Maria decided to reveal their identity. It was a relative of Miguel's who lived with him in a residence, very close to where Melany's body was found. The relative recounted that on the night of June 29, they saw Miguel arrive at the house around midnight with a shovel and muddy shoes. Minutes later, he started a fire and began burning clothes and makeup, then took a long shower. With all the evidence gathered, on July 10 of that year, the agents obtained an arrest warrant against Miguel. He voluntarily presented himself at the police and was charged with aggravated femicide. He did not accept the charges and declared himself innocent, with a strange smile on his face. After 6 months of delaying the judicial process, Miguel decided to make a plea deal, accepting the charges that identified him as the author of the crime in exchange for a reduced sentence. Once the judges agreed, he began to recount the last hours of the young woman's life. On June 28, 2018, Miguel saw Melany at the disco where Isaac's birthday party would be held. He approached to talk to her, but quickly noticed she was exchanging messages with another boy. This triggered uncontrollable jealousy in him. He couldn't believe she already had another man. They began a heated argument, which turned violent. He hit her hard and threw her to the ground. Then they went to a football field, where the dispute continued. At some point, he grabbed her by the neck and strangled her until she died. At that moment, he decided to hid her body. He then returned home to burn her clothes and belongings. In his statement, Mikkel excused himself by saying he had acted under the influence of drugs. The account was quite imprecise. Mikkel did not want to clarify where he killed Melany or how he hid the body. The agents assumed that after taking her to the sports complex, he persuaded her to talk alone near where he buried her. They only had two certainties. Mikkel was guilty of femicide, and his motive for committing the crime had been jealousy and obsession. Psychological analyses showed that he was an aggressive, possessive person with an explosive character. However, they also proved that he was fully aware of his actions when he committed the crime, so he had to face trial. On Friday, January 18, 2019, almost 7 months after the young woman's murder, the first hearing was held. Mikkel was found guilty of aggravated femicide and sentenced to 34 years and 8 months in prison. After hearing the jury's decision, he apologized to Melany's family and society and was transferred to a prison in Medellin. While the family was satisfied with the verdict, they all said they would never forgive him. After the trial, they united more than ever. The young woman's biological father thanked everyone on his Facebook account for the support they had given him during the process. He said that although the sentence would not bring his daughter back, it at least set an example that such cases do not always go unpunished. However, there is a reality. The authorities had been alerted about Mikkel's dangerousness. If they had followed through with the restraining order, Melany might still be alive. And that's the end of today's case. As always, I appreciate your support for my work. If you subscribe, like, and share this video, it will help me continue creating content. This was another episode of Unreal True Crime. See you soon. The horrible case of Oakley Carlson. Oakley Carlson's journey began on December 6, 2016, in Oakville, Washington, but her upbringing was far from ordinary. She came from a family facing numerous challenges. Her parents, Jordan Bowers and Andrew Carson, had their fair share of troubles. Andrew had a brief stint as a police officer, but got dismissed due to misconduct, although it didn't lead to any criminal charges. On the other hand, Jordan had a history marked by serious drug and theft-related offenses, and both grappled with substance abuse. Their family had been under scrutiny since 2013 due to various complaints about how they were raising their children. In August 2017, Jordan initiated a crowdfunding campaign in a bid to gather support for hiring a lawyer. Child Protective Services had taken custody of their children following a report that they weren't providing proper medical care to one of their daughters, who had health issues affecting her growth and weight. During that same period, 8-month-old Oakley found herself in the care of Eric and Jamie Jo Hiles. The Hiles were caring school teachers who had a deep longing to become parents. Their journey to become Oakley's foster parents began when a former student of theirs informed them that the granddaughter of his hairdresser needed a foster home and would eventually be put up for adoption. He suggested that they offer a loving home, and they wholeheartedly agreed. As Oakley grew, she blossomed into a joyful child who loved to bring smiles to everyone around her. Her passion for dancing led to her enrollment in dance classes. She also possessed an extraordinary ability to memorize stories and was exceptionally bright, radiating love in the Hiles' home. Jamie and Eric were always honest with Oakley, explaining that although she didn't come from Jamie's belly, she came from her heart. The couple cherished her deeply and had dreams of adopting her. However, in October 2019, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families made the difficult decision that Oakley should return to live with her biological family. Despite the Hiles' concerns, in November 2019, just a week shy of her 3rd birthday, Oakley bid farewell to Jamie and Eric, returning to live with Jordan, Andrew, and her siblings. Jamie later shared in an interview the heart-wrenching experience of letting go of Oakley on the day before Thanksgiving dinner. It was a tearful farewell, filled with uncertainty about whether they'd ever have the chance to see her again. They remained vigilant about Oakley's well-being, as they had lingering concerns about Jordan and Andrew's ability to care for and protect her. Regrettably, the concerns of Oakley's foster parents were not unfounded. In 2020, Oakley spent Christmas with her paternal grandparents, who were deeply alarmed by her condition. She had developed noticeable dark circles under her eyes, had sores on her face, and appeared pale and bruised. Worried for her safety and well-being, the grandparents reached out to Child Protective Services, but it seemed that their report only ignited a significant family dispute. Following that disturbing incident, Andrew's parents had no further contact with Oakley or her parents. Nearly a year later, on November 6, 2021, just before 5 p.m., Andrew contacted the authorities to report a house fire that had occurred earlier that same day. According to his account, Oakley accidentally set the sofa on fire while playing with a lighter. Andrew explained that he and his wife had battled the flames for 4 hours, but despite their best efforts, the fire had spread to the second floor of their home. This raised eyebrows among the firefighters, primarily due to the considerable delay between the start of the fire and its reporting. Andrew attributed the delay to the chaotic situation, as neither he nor his wife could locate their cell phones to call for assistance. Given the inconsistencies in the information provided, officials launched a thorough investigation into the incident. Their findings revealed that the fire had actually originated in the microwave, contradicting the initial report of the sofa being the source of the blaze. In the aftermath of the fire, a close family friend organized an online fundraiser, explaining that the fire had devastated the upper part of their house, resulting in the loss of most of their belongings. Several days later, Jessica, the local school director, whose daughter was friends with one of the Carlson girls, decided to visit the family. They were staying at an inn at the time, and she aimed to deliver supplies and offer support. Upon her arrival, she immediately noticed Oakley's absence and inquired about her whereabouts. She was informed that Oakley was grounded. Subsequently, she sent a school colleague to make another supply delivery, but this visit lasted only 5 minutes. The colleague became increasingly concerned that Oakley was not present with her siblings on that day. Growing ever more alarmed about the perplexing absence of the child, Jessica seized an opportunity during a visit from Oakley's younger sister, who was spending the night at her place, to gently inquire about Oakley's whereabouts. To her shock, the 6-year-old girl responded with visible irritation, stating that Oakley no longer existed and had been taken in by her adoptive parents. This startling revelation prompted Jessica to take immediate action. She promptly contacted the County Child Protective Services office, expressing her deep concern about Oakley's safety and requesting a welfare check to ensure the child's well-being. On December 6, 2021, authorities conducted a visit to the hotel where Oakley's family had been staying after the fire, with the aim of assessing the situation regarding the missing child. Jordan greeted them at the door, holding a 2-year-old child in her arms, and indicated that the family was in the process of packing up. The ensuing conversation was fraught with unsettling signs. When questioned about Oakley's whereabouts, Jordan responded that Oakley was with her foster mother. The officer pressed her to confirm if she was indeed the child's mother, to which she affirmed. However, when asked again about her daughter's location, Jordan's response was to turn around and seek confirmation from someone else in the room if the child was with her foster parents. At this juncture, the officer beckoned Andrew closer to the entrance and posed the same question about his daughter's whereabouts. He replied that Oakley was with his parents, referring to the child's grandparents, but admitted he did not have their address or phone number. Eventually, he provided this crucial information to the police. According to official records, the officers reached out to Andrew's father, who disclosed that they had not seen their granddaughter since December 2020 when she had spent Christmas with them. Subsequently, authorities visited the grandparents' residence in person, confirming that the child was indeed not with them. Realizing their investigative options narrowing, they contacted social services personnel to inquire if the child was in foster care. However, according to the officials, the child should have been with her biological parents. Upon returning to the Carlsons' hotel room, the officials informed Andrew that the child was not with her grandparents. Rather than displaying concern, he appeared oddly indifferent, as if he had prior knowledge of the information they had just conveyed. Jordan's reaction, while different, was equally perplexing. She erupted in anger, tightly clenched her fists, and declared her refusal to answer their questions before promptly retreating to the room. For the authorities, it was becoming increasingly apparent that the Carlsons were harboring something. Adding to their concerns was a peculiar observation made regarding the family's vehicle parked at the hotel. There was only one child safety seat, despite the fact that they were supposed to have 4 children, all under the age of 10. On the same day, around 2:00 p.m., Jessica, the school director, contacted the police to report an unusual incident. Jordan had called the school during regular school hours, citing an emergency and expressing the need to pick up her 6-year-old daughter. Acting on the cautionary side, the authorities promptly instructed the school not to release the child to her parents. However, the warning turned out to be unnecessary, as Jordan and Andrew failed to show up at the school. Approximately an hour and a half after the call, 32-year-old Jordan and 36-year-old Andrew departed the hotel with their 2-year-old child, but their departure did not go unnoticed. Both of them were arrested for obstruction as they adamantly refused to cooperate with the ongoing investigation. Simultaneously, on the same day, the police made a public appeal on social media, seeking assistance from the community to help locate Oakley. According to a report from a local newspaper, this marked a turning point as Child Protective Services assumed custody of the 2- and 6-year-old children. As for the 9-year-old, the identity of the guardian who assumed custody remained undisclosed. The family's residence and property underwent a thorough examination, with detectives from the county police and the FBI working together. Despite their meticulous search of the house, they found no sign of the missing girl or any evidence suggesting she had been living there recently. What stood out was that while all her siblings had designated bedrooms, there was no indication of a room for Oakley, and her clothing and toys were noticeably absent. A significant discovery for the ongoing investigation was the presence of bloodstains on the blinds, the front door, and a handprint on one of the walls. On December 6, Andrew and Jordan found themselves in the county jail, each with a bond set at $150,000 and a 72-hour hold, all due to suspicions of involuntary manslaughter. However, as the investigations progressed, additional charges were brought against them in the following days. They now faced allegations of second-degree abandonment of a dependent person. This new charge stemmed from the authorities' discovery that, for approximately 15 months, the couple had failed to provide their 6-year-old daughter with the prescribed medical treatment, resulting in a severe decline in her health that posed a risk of death. The police clarified that this was the sole charge that would keep them detained, and the bond remained in effect. Oakley's paternal grandparents issued a statement, emphasizing their full cooperation with the investigation and their singular objective: to locate their missing granddaughter. They also shared their prayers for the child's safe return and expressed gratitude for all those diligently working to find her. On December 13 of the same year, the search efforts officially concluded. Law enforcement authorities reported extensive searches that covered over 300 acres, scouring for any trace of the vanished child. The police affirmed that every inch of land had been meticulously examined, leaving no stone unturned. However, he underlined that the quest for truth regarding the fate of the little girl was far from over. Despite the parents' claims of having seen the child as recently as November 30, they were unable to provide any concrete information about her whereabouts or her current condition. Their inability to confirm whether the child was under the care of an adult further compounded the mystery. Yet, considering all the gathered evidence, detectives established a troubling timeline. Oakley had not been seen alive since January 27, 2021. It led them to a grim conclusion that the child couldn't possibly have survived on her own for such an extended period. Given these revelations, authorities issued a heartfelt plea to anyone who may have come into contact with Oakley since January 2021 or had interactions with her parents during that time to step forward with any information they might possess. Furthermore, court documents unveiled disturbing testimonies from Oakley's own siblings, who held the grim belief that their sister was no longer among the living. The eldest among them disclosed that their mother had strictly forbidden any discussion about Oakley. They recounted a tragic narrative in which Oakley had supposedly accidentally started a house fire using their mother's lighter, leading to physical abuse and her confinement in a cell beneath the stairs as a form of punishment. Their mother had allegedly told them that Oakley had ventured into the woods and met a tragic fate at the jaws of wolves. Another sibling recalled incidents where Jordan had used a belt to discipline Oakley and had locked her in a closet, expressing deep concerns about their sister's well-being and a haunting fear that she might have succumbed to starvation. Based on the available information, authorities were unable to determine whether Oakley was still alive before the house fire. It's worth noting that legal documents revealed a troubling history. Since 2013, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families had received a total of 11 records related to the Carlsons. Among these, 8 were closely examined in light of allegations involving domestic violence, physical abuse, parental drug use, and medical neglect. In February 2022, a significant development unfolded in the case against Jordan and Andrew. This time, they faced fresh charges for endangering their children by exposing them to a controlled substance. This shocking turn of events stemmed from the alarming discovery of dangerously high levels of methamphetamine in the bodies of 2 of their children. A month later, on March 14, it was reported in the media that Andrew had pleaded guilty to separate charges of endangering 2 of his children with drugs. Unfortunately, his guilty plea did not yield any information that could shed light on the circumstances surrounding Oakley's disappearance. It was also announced at that time that Andrew would face sentencing at the end of March, with the maximum penalty being 12 months of imprisonment. In response to these developments, concerned citizens gathered near County Jail, demanding that the Carlsons reveal the fate of their daughter. The protesters raised their voices, labeling Jordan as a monster rather than a mother. Among the demonstrators stood Oakley's foster mother, who expressed her dissatisfaction with the potential 1-year sentence for the biological father, emphasizing that the children's trauma would extend far beyond that period. As planned, Andrew's sentencing hearing unfolded on March 28, conducted through a video call. The judge delivered a 12-month sentence for endangering the minors. While pronouncing the verdict, the judge directed her words toward the defendant, highlighting the fundamental duty of a parent to protect their children, a duty he had evidently failed to fulfill. Moreover, the judge imposed several restrictions on Andrew. These restrictions included a prohibition on consuming controlled substances. Additionally, he was mandated to undergo a chemical dependency assessment within 45 days of his release, follow a recommended treatment, and provide proof of compliance to the court for the subsequent 6 months following his release from prison. In early April 2022, shortly after Andrew's sentencing, Jordan also entered a guilty plea. She admitted guilt on the 2 charges of exposing her children to contact with a controlled substance. Consequently, on April 22, she received a 20-month prison sentence. Moreover, she was subject to a restriction that prevented her from having any contact with minors under the age of 18 without proper supervision. However, in January 2023, shortly after her release following her sentence related to 2 of her children, Jordan faced legal issues once again. This time, she was arrested for fraud and identity theft. Authorities revealed that she had fraudulently acquired 4 credit cards using personal information from friends and family. Interestingly, 3 of these illicitly obtained cards were discovered obstructing a toilet in the hotel room where the couple had stayed following their house fire. It was also disclosed that Jordan had spent over $40,000 using these cards, making purchases at Walmart and eBay, and even withdrawing cash for gambling at a casino. Jordan eventually reached a guilty plea agreement. Initially facing a 36-month sentence, the judge, exercising discretion, decided to impose a longer sentence. Consequently, Jordan was sentenced to 43 months in jail. Meanwhile, Oakley's foster parents have remained actively engaged in their relentless search for the missing child. They have continued to express their frustration and heartache, maintaining that the decision to return the girl to her biological parents was made hastily and put the child's well-being at risk, given that Andrew and Jordan were deemed unfit, both mentally and physically, to care for her. Oakley's disappearance had a profound impact on the public, evoking significant interest and empathy. The local community not only cooperated with law enforcement, but also assembled in front of the county courthouse on multiple occasions, demanding justice. Additionally, an online petition was launched in December 2021, amassing over 7,000 signatures. The petition sought to advocate for a support system aimed at safeguarding children who were returning to their families after exiting the foster care system. It also called for mandatory long-term drug testing for families reuniting with their children. This petition eventually evolved into a bill known as the Oakley Law. While it was reported in February 2023 that the bill had encountered obstacles in the Washington state legislature, it did prompt responses from representatives of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families in the state. These officials agreed to engage in discussions regarding policy and budget options, indicating the continued effort to address critical child welfare issues. The fate of Oakley remains shrouded in mystery, presenting a perplexing puzzle for investigators. Their most plausible scenario suggests that the young girl may have tragically lost her life. However, since her disappearance, an unsettling hypothesis has emerged that Jordan might have sold her. The investigation has grappled with an inundation of leads, which has proven to be one of its most challenging aspects from the very outset. The county police has been inundated with reports from all over the country, each suggesting potential sightings of the missing girl. They've diligently collaborated with law enforcement agencies across the United States, meticulously examining every lead. Regrettably, none of these leads has yielded any information about Oakley's whereabouts. Another formidable hurdle faced by investigators was the absence of a clear timeline pinpointing when the girl disappeared. To construct a timeline, they had to painstakingly piece together who had interacted with Jordan, Andrew, and Oakley in the months leading up to her disappearance. This endeavor involved tracking down family members, school personnel, and scoring surveillance footage from various stores. The investigators acknowledged that it would have been relatively straightforward if they were dealing with a family or a group of people who adhered to a consistent, predictable routine. However, in this case, the family's movements were marked by unpredictability. As of the conclusion of this investigation, Oakley's parents had not provided any information concerning the child's fate, and both continued to be regarded as suspects in her disappearance. The investigations remains active and ongoing. In their relentless quest for clues, the police has extended an $85,000 reward. And that's the end of today's case. As always, I appreciate your support for my work. If you subscribe, like, and share this video, it will help me continue creating content. This was another episode of Unreal True Crime. See you soon.